Hello and welcome to Ready for Nintendo. It is November 14th, 2024, and this is episode 901. I don't have to worry about a major episode for 2 years. I am free as a bird now. Just absolutely safe. I'm joined today by Mr. Guillaume Vayette.
Hello, hello.
Mr. Greg Leahy.
Ahoy, hoy, everyone.
And Mr. John Lindemann.
It's great to be here as we march towards episode 1000. Damn, 2000. I mean, I'm not wrong. Technically 2000, but...
True. No, there's something very wrong about there being a thought about episode 2000 of Radio Free Nintendo.
I am marching towards episode 2000.
John's already thinking about just doing a complete reworking of the Will Smith album, Millennium, for that, aren't you?
And a reworking of the Will as well.
John, if you're willing to, I don't know, split the episodes like in 3 or 4 before we release them, I think we can get there.
Nice.
Yeah, so just for reference, John's talking about roughly 19 more years of episodes. And I'm going to have no part of this.
I guess I better start, doing some cardio or something,
Because at some point I want to die. And it's just like...
Just thinking about that mouse at the end of the Green Mile now.
It's been a while. I don't understand this reference.
No, it's
basically it's a mouse that had lived for like 100 years or something ridiculous.
Right.
Remember, the Green Mile's full of weird mystical bullshit.
Yeah, it's like the magic powers have made a mouse live for like 100 years, and they were also used on this old chap that is, a similar age, and he's like, Christ, how long am I going to live?
Right.
Yes.
All right, so we have a little bit of some news to handle right out of the gate. So there was a direct this week, a quickly announced and quickly released direct for the Donkey Kong expansion at Nintendo, what is it? It's Super Nintendo Land in Osaka. Yes, there, I got it all out. I got all the nouns out. So this was Miyamoto giving a tour of the newly completed Donkey Kong expansion to Super Nintendo Land. That is opening in December. They hadn't announced the date for it. We knew it was close. Because we could see it being built. Let me say we're not in Osaka, but people could see it being built. We knew it was nearly done. We knew that contractually all the Super Nintendo Land stuff has to open in the Osaka location before it can open anywhere else. So it had to open there before the Orlando location of Universal Studios gets its Super Nintendo Land at all, because it's getting both Mario and Donkey Kong at the same time as part of the new theme park they're opening. They're opening a 4th gate. They're gonna have 4 fucking gates at that park now. I can't remember what they're calling the new one, the new park. But we know when that's opening. We know that's opening early next year, so we knew the Donkey Kong Land had to open before then. What's interesting is they did this direct. It's about a 10-minute tour, and literally within minutes, I saw ads for that new Universal Studios park on television, prominently featuring Donkey Kong. So I'm guessing this was all timed. Like, no, we get to announce the stuff in the park. So we got to see Miyamoto give a tour. We got to see him talk to Donkey Kong, who was a large costume, did not jump out and scare children. So it was a missed opportunity. Park completely empty, which was a little bit weird. We got to see Donkey Kong's weird fucking hot dog. And what was the other food item they showed?
There was a dessert, wasn't there?
There was a dessert. I'm blanking on what it was.
It was ice cream. It was inspired by the way that Donkey Kong smashes barrels. It was in this waffle cone.
Yeah, there's like an insert behind it that looks like a Donkey Kong explosion and him ground pounding it.
Right.
But yeah, it's...
and that ice cream did not have avocado sauce
avocado on your hot dog.
Yes.
I'd
try it.
I would not. Because why? Fucking why? Also, it's probably like $12.
I mean, what else are you going to do over there other than have a $12 hot dog? I didn't see
That's what you go to Japan for, right? I go there to have American food.
I've had a hot dog in Japan. It was not good.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
But it is. Yeah, it's got one ride, which we knew that. We knew it only had one ride. It's a minecart ride. We got to see go up the hill, and then he's like, "Nope, can't show you any more after that." What we do know is that it, among other things, is supposed to simulate the feeling of jumping between minecart rails, which I don't know how it does that, but okay, sure. And it starts out with the barrel blast, which is where we stopped.
This is sort of like you get to do your best, short round impersonation, I guess, or something?
Sure, yeah. I don't think that's the reference they were going for, but yes.
I just kind of wanted to use that reference.
It's got. I'm assuming that is a large reason why there were minecart sequences in DKC, even though Temple of Doom was more than 10 years old by that point, or maybe exactly 10 years old by the time that DKC 1 came out. But yeah,
that's fair.
I'm pretty sure that is the reason why it got its way into DKC in the first place.
Yeah, all right. Yeah, you're right. Well, I mean, Rare would never copy popular media franchises in their games.
No. It's just, I mean, the memories I have of the Conker's Bad Fur Day ending with something that simultaneously rips off the Bowser boss fight from Mario 64 and literally has a Xenomorph from Alien, and it must be false. I must have simply concocted them myself.
No, they actually invented those characters independently. just a coincidence. Ridley Scott and them working on the same wavelength. Yeah, I mean, it wasn't exactly the most impressive tour. Like, we got to see this bongo thing they have that works with the watches that we talked about as a trivia question last week.
You gotta wonder how long the line for that would be. Like, I don't understand how these theme parks. Like, I don't go to theme parks, but I especially don't understand how these Nintendo theme parks work, because I can't envision a good experience there.
So part of it is, and this might change with the Orlando location, is they limit the number of people who are allowed into the section.
Yeah, and I mean,
know they do.
The one in LA, it's small, right? It's like a small contained open area sort of thing where you go to the different. It's almost like sort of like stations, I guess. That's what it kind of feels like. If it's like, it's like on your left is this, and then, straight ahead of you is this, and then off to your right is this. And so it's not like you go in there and it's some huge expansive thing. It's almost like a big room.
If you've never been to Universal Studios LA, I haven't either, but I mean, I have a pretty good feel for what it is. It is not like the other Universal Studios parks. It is actually Universal Studios, and they just put attractions in it.
It's sort of, it feels like it's kind of like, okay, this is what we stuck in here because this is all we had room for.
Right. They are extremely space constrained. So at the moment, they have no plans to get Donkey Kong Land. Because they don't know where to put it. They'd have to knock something else down. Because it is still a live film set versus the Orlando one, which was originally the thought was we'll open up another branch in Orlando, we'll compete with the Mouse, we'll have sound stages there where we can have non-union productions. I mean, cheaper productions. But ultimately, it just became a theme park. Like, it just, over time, if you were there I think I went in like 1996, it was kind of a hybrid where it was like most of the attractions were go on a tour, and at one point King Kong pops out, and yes, I get the irony of Universal now having a Donkey Kong Land. But they had started their Ride the Movies thing, which is what they became to. Like, we're gonna make rides about movies. They had the Back to the Future ride. They had the Honey I Shrunk the Kids experience, which wasn't a ride, but it was like a thing you could walk through, and it was just everything was big. I think they had a couple other rides. They had a Jaws ride, which was just a water ride. But like now it's much less predicated on big hit movies, because what they found is those movies get old and people stop going to them. People stop being interested in the ride. And they've built these other parks. They have Islands of Adventure, and they have whatever this new one's called. I can't remember what it's called. It's not Infinite, is it? That'd be really funny. It's some other word like that. Dimensions? I don't know. But it's like the actual LA part, like, no, it's still mostly sound stages. The Japan one and the one, I want to say it's in Southeast Asia. I can't remember where it is. Malaysia, maybe? Are all getting the Donkey Kong Land, I believe. But none of them have opened, outside of Orlando and LA, nobody's opened their Super Nintendo Land. So the other places are getting it, and I think they're getting Donkey Kong Land with it. So that's sort of the rub there. So if you want to see Donkey Kong Land and not have to leave America, you're going to have to go to Orlando to see the Cranky Kong robot, which is a thing. A talking Cranky Kong robot before the minecart ride. Which actually, he looked pretty good. It looked pretty good. I was kind of surprised. I thought it would look bad, but it was good animatronics. Like, what I know, based on what I've heard, is that they really pulled out all the stops with this new park they're opening in Orlando, and that it's 1-to-1 with what they're getting in Japan. So I'm not surprised. It looks really good. But like in the video, it seemed very good very solid animatronics. Donkey Kong's suit looked really convincing. He looks huge. Then Miyamoto's not a big guy, so it's easy to look huge next to Miyamoto. But still, we got to see the gift shop, and and we saw that there are going to be Kong letters throughout the park that you can tap with the watch, and it shows up in your phone, and I guess something happens. But yeah, I mean, it's not a huge expansion of the park footprint. It's mostly just like a themed experience you get to walk around in. And yeah, to your point, Guillaume, it really is like, if it's slammed in there, yeah, I bet a lot of that stuff's there's gonna be a line to tap to get K. So they're gonna have to like limit access to, or limit the number of people who are allowed in at one time. And theme parks have started doing that, creating subzones inside their gate where they just limit the number of people allowed in at any one time. So the line is actually to get into the space, to keep the space from being overcrowded. Universal Studios Japan's done that for this stuff for a while. I think you get, and John, you've been there. So didn't you have to reserve to get into the Super Nintendo Land?
Yeah, you do. It's completely separate from the rest of the park. Yeah.
Yeah.
So and at that you have a normal pass, and then you have like the accelerated pass where you can skip all of the unwashed masses that have to wait in line. So they do that too.
Yeah, so we've also seen this in some of the Disney parks, like Tokyo Disney Sea, which it took me an embarrassing amount of time to realize is a pun on the name Tokyo Disneyland. It's the second gate for the Tokyo park. Just did a huge expansion where they added all these fantasy stuff, and yeah, you have to get a separate ticket to go in there. It doesn't cost anything, but you have to reserve it when you get in the park, because they're just like, a lot of this is just the experience of walking around this incredibly themed place we made. And if you put 800 million people in there who all want to see it, it's going to lose all of its appeal. So you go to the park, then you check in and say, I want to get a pass to go in. And then they tell you, okay, your time to enter is roughly around here. And that's when you go in. Or you buy the express pass and skip the line. So yeah, there is this like weird retrenchment of going to theme parks isn't just about like having the most rides or the biggest rides, which was like the Six Flag approach. And instead it's about having these spaces that are, actual theme park style areas, and they themselves are the appeal. And the Super Nintendo Land feels like it's really trying to do that. At least based on what I've seen. I mean, I do want to go at some point. I mean, John, you said you enjoyed it well enough.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I mean, it was smaller than I expected, but it was pretty cool. I mean, I thought the Mario Kart ride was okay. It wasn't what I expected from the standpoint of, I thought it would try to be more of a roller coaster rather than kind of it was more of like those rides at Disney World where it's kind of a guided tour almost. That's sort of what it felt like, even with the AR elements.
It's a dark ride more than but I mean, it's not, because it moves.
Right, yeah. But it's not, but it tries to feel like a race, but it's also just kind of very slow and along a track, Yeah,
it's not jamming at high speed or anything.
No, really it's about sort of okay, well, hey, it's sort of like you move from place to place, and there's like a little AR related activity that you stop for, And then some.
Oh, I didn't realize you stopped.
Yeah, you do. Because what'll happen is there'll be kind of like a boss sort of character that will pop up, and
in a Mario Kart.
Yeah, a little bit. Like you have to do something. I don't remember exactly what it was, but I know that like there's at certain points in the race, I guess you could call it, something will happen. Like you'll spin out on a banana peel, and you're in this. I think it's a 4-person cart, right? And so you have your AR stuff on, and it stops you, and sometimes it'll spin you around, like if you hit a banana peel. But there's always certain there's several points, like maybe 3 or 4 points throughout the race, where you have to look at something, and you have like little triggers on the steering wheel, and so you have to look at something, and then you have to defeat it, right? Like you have to like fire shells at it or something like that, and then you move on to the next station. So it's a little bit slow paced.
So it really is a dark ride. Like it is a proper dark ride. It is not. Oh yeah, that is not what I expected at all. It does feel like the Donkey Kong thing is a proper roller coaster.
Yeah, this is like this is all indoors.
Yeah, it's dark ride.
Yeah,
that's weird.
Yep.
That kind of reminds me of God, what is the name of that? There's a Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway or whatever. But that's weird in that it's a cartless ride, so the cars are looking at things on the floor. And so they're not connected. Like it starts out like it's a train. They're all connected, and then you realize that every car is self-propelled. And they can go and do all kinds of weird shit.
Yeah.
While scenes play out around you, but that feels like that's more involved than this.
Yeah, I mean, to anybody that's been to Universal Studios in LA, compare that to a couple of other rides that are similar, like the Harry Potter ride. That is effectively an indoor roller coaster, where you're going up and down and around and all kinds of stuff. And then there's also the Jurassic Park ride, which is more like that too, where at the end you have kind of a log flume where you're going all over the place, and then you eventually come down into the water. This is not like that. This is more slower paced. And I think that that's probably because they want it to be more tolerable for children. I think that's really where it comes from. So
I would, I'm not sure if I want to go, like, I don't want to go to the new Orlando park, because that place is going to, I mean, they've been hyping this park literally for a decade. It's going to be a goddamn madhouse for a year or two. Maybe I'll just go to Japan again. It might be cheaper, even with the exchange. It might be cheaper.
Yeah, that's what a friend of mine said, is that they went to Japan because it was actually cheaper to go to Japan. No, it was Europe. When they went to, they were talking about Disney World Paris, and they said that it was actually cheaper. Yeah. It was cheaper to go to Disney World Paris than it was to go to Florida. So that wouldn't surprise me if the same rules applied to you.
God. Unrelated, semi-unrelated. Universal bought a whole bunch of land. I want to say it was in England recently, presumably to build another park. So Europe might get their Super Nintendo land sooner or later, but it's going to be a while, obviously, if they haven't even announced what they're doing with that land. So, things to keep in mind. But yeah, I might wait for my next Japan trip to do it. That just feels like it's a better, like, I could do that, then I could do the Nintendo Museum and really OD on this shit. And then go to the Kyoto Nintendo store and just hit all of the, that region.
Yep.
And then hit all the Kansai Nintendo nostalgia in one shot.
Yep. Kidnap Miyamoto, the whole thing. The whole... Yeah, sorry. I know.
Not on the recording.
Sorry, that was...
Not on the recording.
My bad. Strike it.
Remember, we're using code names here. Aonuma. That's the code name.
Okay.
They'll never see it coming. Anyway, I don't think there's much else to say about it. I mean, it looked cool. The theming wise, it looked really impressive. It looked like they did a really nice job designing the space. But
I guess the one thing that I took from it, which is nothing that much about the park itself, other than obviously it's very DKC Returns, and that is coming out again. in January, not terribly long from now. But in tandem with the investor relations thing, you know, where we touched on this a little bit, I think, last week, where they were showing, the growth of franchises on Switch, you know, because it's unified now, right? We were not, their sort of narrative they were trying to tell with these stats was the notion that, now that we've got one single Nintendo platform, all these kind of franchises that we had on Wii U and 3DS, look at how many more players they've reached than they did in the past, and, you know, Pikmin and Metroid and all that. And I don't know this for a fact because I didn't see all of them, but I bet you Donkey Kong was not one of them, because they haven't done very much with Donkey Kong on Switch. It's kind of bizarre when you think about it. The fact is, I mean, I think DKC Returns, the 3D version on 3DS, probably sold pretty well, and therefore, like, that would be a case where, like, just the sales of Tropical Freeze, it wouldn't show anywhere near the kind of growth, if growth at all, that they were talking about with, look how many more Xenoblade games we've sold, look how many more Metroid games we've sold. So, yeah, that just, it is a sort of weird disconnect there of, like, you know, this is, like, one of the relatively few things that, you know, you really haven't, for whatever reason, found a way to kind of put on the big stage, you know, of this single Nintendo platform that sold over 140 million units in hardware, that was actually already, you know, commercially successful, you know, in a way that things like Luigi's Mansion and Pikmin, you know, weren't. And all you've managed to do is, you know, re-release, you know, a port, you know, the Wii U game, which is a very enjoyable game, and it was nice that it was on Switch, but, you know, and it sold respectably, but, you know, did set the world on fire. And now, you know, right, presumably at the very end, you know, we're getting a port of, you know, the Wii game that also was on 3DS. It just seems like, yeah, considering this is like your first expansion of this theme park, and like DK, I still haven't seen the Mario movie, by the way, but, you know, I understand DK is quite prominently featured in that and all that. They've done remarkably little with it, and it just so I guess they had no choice really but to go back to DKC Returns. You know what I mean? Like that is the, I mean, I guess the Tropical Freeze, like, everything's frozen thing wouldn't really work, like, for a theme park, because it's like, yeah, it was different for that game, but it's not really very Donkey Kong in general. So this is all the only thing they really had, you know, to kind of, that was even vaguely recent or relevant that they could actually reference here.
I assume, I mean, a lot of factors why DK is the expansion. I mean, part of it is probably Universal has plans for the Donkey Kong character. It really felt like they were setting up the Donkey Kong spin-off TV series for Peacock. Like, it really feels like that. I don't think it's enough for a standalone film, but it definitely felt like the Shadow the Hedgehog series of Donkey Kong is coming. But two, also it has immediate brand energy with Mario versus doing Zelda, which you'd have to try to figure out how to make Zelda work. Probably somewhat isolated, because you wouldn't want to, like, be looking at Hyrule Castle and see Peach's castle immediately in the background. They put too much effort into the theming for that. So, like, there's some trade-offs they have to figure out too. There's some complexity. I want to say there's Pokemon stuff coming, but as a separate whole arrangement, but I'm not 100% sure on that. I mean, the to me, like, Luigi's Mansion would have been a better expansion for where they're at right now. Like, that seems like that would have made more sense, because it wouldn't have to take up a bunch of space, so you could put it in every park. But I don't know, maybe that's just an attraction they add later. It feels like something they could, should, must do, because of Luigi's Mansion haunted house. Like, if you've ever been through, like, Haunted Mansion, just doing that with Luigi's Mansion, just rip it off wholesale. Let Disney sue you. Who gives a fuck? But using the art style would be really fun. I guess the reason we haven't gotten a DK game is everybody's been sucked into the Metroid black hole. So
I mean,
Metroid Prime 4...
You could look at it that way, I suppose, with Retro specifically, but I mean, there's other developers to pursue, there's other things. It's just from a point of view of like, you would think, this is one of the bigger name recognition kind of brands that you had at your disposal coming into this hardware generation, and the Tropical Freeze port exists. Excellent game, and I'm sure it sold many more units than it did on Wii U for obvious reasons. But it still strikes me as a bit of a missed opportunity, really. But especially, I feel like maybe to do something a bit more new. You know what I mean? Like, because obviously, DKC Returns was very much just trying to trade off kind of nostalgia and this sort of 2D side-scrolling, kind of design renaissance and revival that you had after New Super Mario Brothers, and that's fine, and they mostly did a pretty decent job with that. But that's not the only thing that you could do with DK. You could certainly try. Trying to branch out a bit, you know what I mean, to do something a bit, kind of, I don't know, just theming, kind of all various things that just felt a bit fresher than just kind of dusting that off. But they just, I guess they've had other fish to fry. You can't get to everything, even with all the so many, different partnerships and the kind of cooperations they've had with outside developers and all this stuff. You can't get to everything, and maybe it'll be something that will be kind of so they can hit relatively early for the next system now. But it does seem like they haven't quite sort of the synergy here isn't everything it could have been.
So you're saying something new. You mean not new funky mode?
Well, I mean, that was something new, I suppose, James.
It's in the name. There. It's in the name. The mode is funky and also
one
new.
Considers it a new funky mode or a funky new mode, it certainly is new.
That's true. That is still one of my favorite. Just like, I can't believe you put this on the box. You absolute lunatics. All right. Let's move on. We've spent 30 minutes on a 10-minute direct. So, new business. I promised you all 3 weeks ago Ys 10 impressions. Well, what's happened is I got Ys 10 and I played it, and we didn't do new business last week, and I beat it. And also, I beat it so exhaustively, there's almost no content left except filling out the fishing book. And the game has like dozens and dozens of fish in it. So fuck that shit. I'm not doing that. That's not worth my time or energy. And then there's a quest related to fishing. And that's it. That's the only stuff I'm missing. So let's talk about Ys 10. So to do that, I'm gonna roll back the clock a little bit, probably about 4 or 5 years to when I talked about Ys 8 on this show. Ys 8 was the first one to come out on Switch, of the modern Ys games. There may have been some like weird, like we got Ys 1 from MSX today, actually, in Japanese, because sure, but like actual modern Ys release was Ys 8, and what I said on the show at the time was, this feels like Xenoblade, where the budget constraints were extremely on point. And I stand by that for 10. There is a certain exploration element to this game that very much aligns with what you get out of something like a Xenoblade. But the budget concerns are always there at all times. You can see it constantly. And they're just trying to make the trade-off. So, if you've not played an Ys game, it's kind of immaterial for me to talk about the early ones. But the basic setup is every Ys game, spelled YS in case anybody's curious, is a journal, a separate journal that was written by the adventurer Adol Christian late in his life, who left his home village when he was like 16, which was this town so far out in the remote parts of not Europe. All the countries have basically like weird misspellings of countries and regions in the real world. So they just kind of go with it. So like, it's not Europe, it's Europa or whatever. He lives out in some rural place outside the confines of the rest of the world on a mountain. And he decided he wanted to see the ocean. That was it. That was his adventure. And he has this bad habit of every time he gets on a boat, it wrecks. And he ends up stuck in the middle of some kind of existential crisis for the world. And his adventure sense ends up with him being the catalyst to solve the problem. I would say by the time Ys 10 has come out, so the Ys games aren't in chronological order. They just kind of put them in wherever. By Ys 10, Adal has met multiple creator gods. In some cases fought them. Has saved the world at least 4 or 5 times in different societies, in different cultures, and has confronted, I would say, existential, earth-rending challenges at least 6 or 7 times. Has been trapped on legendary islands that don't exist on charts and can't be escaped multiple times. Has wrecked a ship 7 or 8 times and ended up washed ashore. Sometimes he just washes ashore to start the game. Like, it's just the very first scene is Adal has washed up on a beach. Imagine if every Zelda game started with the Link's Awakening opening. That's Adal's life, to the point where characters start making jokes about it. They're like, I don't think I should get on this boat. You're here. And so you're just this adventurer who goes out into the world and confronts some kind of magical crisis problem. Some cases it's an ancient civilization a la Layton games that had created all kinds of problems for the future. Some cases it's a deity that's decided to do something. Some cases it's a missing deity whose absence has caused problems. Some cases it's a distortion where time is being warped and now there's an island full of dinosaurs. That's Ys 8. Ys 9, I talked about on the show, I didn't care for. The reason I don't care for Ys 9, and the reason why I love Ys 8 and Ys 10, to a lesser extent, is Ys 9 takes place in a city. Adal is trapped in the city, and he's gained this mystical power of some kind of paranormal creature that lets him transform into a character who can be a phantom and like warp around and stuff. He's trapped in, but he can't leave the city. That's sort of the main conceit. Ys 8 and Ys 10 are all about exploration. In Ys 8, you're dropped on this big fucking island, and it's full of dinosaurs, many of which are too strong for you, which has a very Xenoblade vibe to it. And you have objectives, but largely speaking, you're exploring the island, building your base camp, where the ship that your presence inevitably caused to wreck here, and defending the island from dinosaur attacks while trying to unravel the mystery of why there are dinosaurs on this island. And why anytime you try to leave, you are unable to do so. Very Xenoblade X in that kind of way. In 10, the big revelation is that Adal did not wreck his boat. Something the game makes jokes about, even though chronologically this is only his 3rd adventure. This happens before Celceta possibly only for Guillaume's benefit.
Mm-hmm.
I think this happens after 1 and 2 and before Celceta. So because they are trying to get to Celceta, I believe is what's happened here. Their boat is hijacked by Vikings, Normans as they call themselves, because the ship captain didn't pay the toll to go through the water, and it gets impounded in a village. So rather than his ship wrecking, the ship is just impounded. But things go poorly when the village is attacked by some kind of monsters that weapons don't hurt, and they have to flee. And so he and a bunch of the other teens from this town that he's stuck in all flee on a boat that's in really bad shape that was meant to be scrapped and go try to get help from the Normans who imprisoned them on this island earlier. And then basically you slowly start exploring the large body of water the game takes place in. And so what you do is usually you're restricted where you can go by some kind of barrier, some kind of impediment, until you make an upgrade to your ship that you have to do, or until a story beat happens that lets you pass through there. Sometimes it's just if you try to go somewhere, Adal goes, we shouldn't go that way yet. And it's like, oh, just let me explore, you bastard. But sometimes it's, there's some kind of barrier that prevents the ship from being able to travel through an area or something like that. So as you progress through the game, you get to expand your ship. You get to expand your crew by rescuing people who were kidnapped in the attack on the island. And you get more capability. So there is ship-to-ship combat with cannons and stuff. There is exploration because the map is largely uncharted, kind of Wind Waker-y, but you don't have to pay a fish to get your map filled in. You just kind of sail around. And you'll find lots of islands that may have totally missable quests on them. So you go to this island, and pretty much every island has something going on, and you can just sort of do what you want to do. You can choose to fight enemies, and that might give you... it's kind of your Ubisoft tower. If you attack the enemy fortresses in the bay, you'll get to see more areas around you. It'll highlight on the map items of interest. There are some towns you'll find if you sail around. I think most of the towns you're led to by the hand, but I think there's at least one you find just by only by exploration. But essentially, the idea is, while there is a main beat plot that you're trying to work through, it's a lot of just messing around and exploring, and I really enjoy that in my games. It's sailing is a little bit of a pain in the butt, but as you go, the game gives you more ways to make the boat go faster. There's no wind, so you don't have to try to point the wind in the right direction a la Wind Waker. It's just, in some places there are sea currents, and if you're riding them, you're going to go faster. In some places there are not. And at some point you get a turbo, and you can upgrade you can upgrade how many boosts you get, but starting out, sailing is pretty slow. There's a very aggressive fast travel system, so it's not so bad. And yeah, from a gameplay standpoint, it's not open world in that the areas are all connected, because they're not. You get on the boat and you go to another area, or go to another island, and then it loads up a new zone inside the island, and that even the island might be subdivided 4 or 5 different times. Because like I said, this game's on a budget, and you can feel that budget constantly. In Ys 9, you could feel that budget constantly. In Ys 8, you could feel that budget constantly. In Ys 9, you felt it by the fact there are dozens and dozens of just absolutely inexcusable bugs. I will give you an example, because I posted a lot of them to Twitter, which now, whatever. There was a cutscene where the adults rescued the party from a dungeon, and they're being watched by, the lieutenant big bads, the officers of the big bad, as they're escaping, and they're running out over the drawbridge that's down. And they're basically just critiquing the people who let him go. They're not trying to actively stop them because they know it's good for them if he gets away. And we get this dramatic scene where they're talking to each other, but the drawbridge hasn't loaded, so it looks like the party's just running over a hole. It does not load through the whole cutscene. It's amazing. Multiple people told me they had the exact same bug happen, but not everybody. That's great. Ys 9 has a lot of shit like that, where it's just, this thing didn't work right because these games are made by Falcom, who don't have a lot of resources, to be honest. And they're also doing all of the Tales of games too. So their resources are spread very thin, and they make decisions on what they're going to prioritize. And sometimes they do a good job, sometimes they do a bad job. I think they did a pretty good job this time. The feeling of exploration is there. There is lots of stuff that's hidden that you can find. There's lots of ways to upgrade your party and your ship and your crew. The party's only 2 people. It's Adol and this Viking girl that he meets while he's up there, Karja. And due to magical doodad of the day, because again, he just keeps running into these things, they have been bound together by a invisible rope of mana and can't leave within I think it's 20 feet or so of each other, which leads to lots of dumb Japanese style slapstick comedy of somebody trying to walk too far and getting yanked and then doing a faceplant. But that's it. That's the party. It's just the 2 of them. So you're just doing their equipment. You could switch between them. It's real-time combat. Mostly it's pressing, I think it's A to attack. And then you can use the shoulder buttons to go in to use special moves. One shoulder button does the character you're controlling special moves. The other one, so I think it's the upper R button and the lower R button. The lower one does combo moves that deplete both characters' SP. And if you attack with the combo mode, you'll either block if you're not attacking, or you'll double attack. And there's a dodge button as well. Some enemies launch attacks that can only be dodged. They can't be blocked. Some launch ones that can't be dodged and have to be blocked because they're devastating. And some do both. There's a lot of... There's some very good boss fights in this game that I really enjoyed. There's some that are hard as shit, but not impossible. You can mess with the difficulty settings on the fly, so it's not too bad. I didn't have to do that. There was one that I was like, man, this fucking sucks. But there's a little bit of puzzle to some of the bosses. Some of the bosses, it's just whack the shit out of them. Just absolutely wail on them. I was able to beat the super boss that is meant to beat after the game. He was level 90. I stumbled across him exploring. I was level 75, and I beat him through sheer force of will and using up my supply of healative items, which you can make because, again, as you add crew to your ship and add resources to your ship, you get the ability to produce more stuff. And so, yeah, I was able to just slowly build out my crew, get to know members of my crew, develop my relationship with them, get access to better materials, and then produce enough healing items that I was able to beat this boss that is way too strong for me. Way too strong for me. And feel good doing it. And get a shitload of experience. The way that the game unlocks skills and stuff feels unnecessarily complicated. It requires you use gemstones in a grid and requires you unlock parts of the grid. Why don't you just unlock the grid for me as I go? I always had more unlock points than I had spaces to unlock. So like there's a currency you get in game that lets you unlock spaces, but I always had more of it than I had locked spaces. So it was like just unlock them as I go. Don't make me have to manually do this shit. Pretty much all the Falcom games do this thing where rather than just press a button, it's you have to hold the button for a second while an indicator fills up to say you want to do something. That gets annoying when you're trying to unlock things. You're just like, I just need to unlock all of them. Fuck it. And then you have to put gemstones that you craft into the slot for stat boosts. It's fine, and I didn't really have to mess with it that much. It just feels overly complicated. Like, it didn't need to be there. But yeah, like, if you want a Xenoblade hit before Xenoblade X, 8 and 10 will give it to you in different ways. 10 very much feels like there's an area in Xenoblade 3 where you get a boat. It's an area that's a big body of water, and you have a boat, and you can just boat around. It feels like that, but bigger. It feels like that specific area of the game, but bigger. Xenoblade, jeez. Ys 8 feels more like a Xenoblade on Wii, the original one, because you're on this big, huge island, and you could probably get the places you shouldn't get to yet by just fucking around and doing stuff. Maybe it's more X in that way. But what you're going to be met with for fucking around is big, strong enemy who wants to eat you. And you might be able to beat them anyway and get huge experience boosts. Give it a shot. I don't know. It's worth doing. From a plot standpoint, it's pretty anime. It's exceedingly anime. It's so anime. The power of love is a major factor. Let's put it that way. As is the power of demonic possession. So, it's all here for you. But yeah, I just really enjoy these games. Like, 9 was super disappointing. Like, I was really bummed with 9. Just because there's so much about it that just doesn't feel good. I did just about everything. I went to all the islands. I did all the main quests. There's a penguin I have to feed. He wants one of every fish, and fuck that shit. I am not dealing with that. You get the best armor in the game for it, but I don't need it. I didn't need it. I absolutely pounded the boss's face into the ground. It was embarrassing. I felt bad for him. So it was like completely unnecessary, but I enjoyed what I played. Like, I mean, I cleared it all in about 46 hours. It's not super long. It's actually shockingly short compared to 8, which I feel like was a lot longer. But it's, I think it's definitely worth the playthrough. Like, if you like if you like the Xenoblade games a lot, like specifically if you like exploring in those games a lot, I'd recommend these. They have some really good music. 8's music was better than 10's. It just is. 8's music is better than 10. We've used 8's music before. 8's music's fucking amazing. 10's is pretty good. I don't have a recommendation for music just yet, Greg. I'll poke around. But yeah, like both of these games are really good. I encourage you play both of them. I think chronologically 8 takes place 4 or 5 years after 10, but it doesn't really matter. Adol's an idiot. He shipwrecks on an island, meets a girl, saves the world, makes the girl fall in love with him, is completely oblivious to the fact, and then goes, I'm going to go on another adventure, and then gets back on a boat, and then washes up somewhere else. This happens over and over again. Every game is self-contained. There are references to things that happened in other games. Him and his friend Dogi in this game are just constantly talking about their last adventure, but mostly in the sense that everybody else is like, what the fuck do y'all do that you've had all these experiences? You should just stop doing it. It seems bad. Mostly it just because everyone's incredulous for all the shit they've already been through. And again, this is like 3 or 4 games into their adventure. I want to say 3 of the Adol shipwrecks on an island and saves the world happen in the same, from a plot standpoint, in the same calendar year. He does this 3 times in a year at age 17. It's dumb. It's very, and they know it's dumb. Like they're very in on the joke at this point. But yeah, I mean, I would say those 2, are worth doing. I would say 9 is never worth doing. Honestly, like to me, there's almost nothing to recommend 9. It's fine at best, but there's better ways to spend your time. I would argue playing 8 again is a better way to spend your time than 9. 9 just isn't very good. So don't 9. But yeah, 8 and 10, thumbs up recommendation. If you played 8, you should definitely enjoyed it. You should definitely play 10. No question. I do wish there were some larger areas to traverse on land, because there is something about exploring on land that's, I mean, exploring by boat's cool, but on land just feels more natural. You know, like it's easier to hide stuff, because on land, I mean, on a boat, you can really only hide stuff on land, but they don't put land in this game unless there's a reason for it to be there. So if there's land, there's something there. If the game in 8, you know, is there something here? Let's go find out. Is part of the joy of it. So, yeah, I mean, I would say they're both really good. They're both worth playing. You should definitely give them a shot. But yeah, just keep in mind, these games were not made on the highest of budget, and they don't look very good. They're trying really hard on their art style, but the visuals are not great. This game performs a hell of a lot better than Ys 9 did. Ys 9 had performance issues out the ass. This one is better. It still looks rough in some places. It still has some weird textury shit. I played it almost entirely in handheld mode. I did do a little bit on screen. And yeah, like the combat feels good. It's not mindless, but most of the time it's not the most demanding of you mentally. There are moments in this game where you have to actually think and plan and fight your fight, like with really pay attention to what the enemy's doing and counter them. But they're not that frequent. It's maybe half the boss battles. And I think there's 9 boss battles in the boss rush mode you unlock after you beat the game. So yeah, I said it's worth doing. It's worth playing. You should do it. You should go play it. Go play it. There's not much else coming out right now. Go play it. I mean, there's one other game that came out, and Greg's going to talk about it. But yeah, that's it. That's all I have to say about Ys 10. I know I just kind of rambled things at y'all, but yeah, do you like adventures on a boat? Do you like to go out at sea and have ship fights? To explore islands for treasure? Congratulations, Ys 10's for you. Go hit it. Yeah, I think that's good for me. Guillaume.
Yeah.
What are you up to?
Yeah, so I've been playing Trials of Mana, which is, yeah, and it's kind of ironic because this game came out in 2020, and I was not in the mood to play it in 2020. Why? Because I had just been playing the Trials of Mana, the original version that came out in the collection of Mana. I played that with Karen. This was a co-op game, you know, if you've played Secret of Mana on the Super Nintendo. It was the sequel, right? Seiken Densetsu 3. So that was originally it stayed in Japan, and so a collection of mana. They translated it, which was awesome. You know, it was an M2 joint. They did a great job on it. It was a lot of fun playing it with Karen. And then Square Enix announced that they were making this full 3D remake of Trials of Mana. And as I got more details, I was less and less interested. First of all, like it dropped the co-op element. And this was back in the day when I hadn't given up on finding other games to play with Karen than beat 'em ups, basically. I was trying to find other things to play together. Now that's over. I know it's never going to happen with any regularity. So it's just beat 'em ups from now on. But yeah, so there was that didn't grab me. Also, the fact that I had just played it, you know, basically. So the story wasn't really gonna draw me in. And also when the demo dropped, boy, the voice acting in this game is rough, and it's probably not completely the fault of the voice actors, although, you know, I guess they were doing as directed, but like I feel like I don't know exactly where it went wrong, basically. Like I don't know if these were orders from Japan that made it sound this way, but like the voices just don't work. Every time that someone speaks, or almost every time, you're kind of unsure what is going on. Like how did this happen? Like it's kind of like a puzzle.
I mean, is it overacting, or what is it like?
It's overacting. It's kind of cringy. I guess I could insert a sample here, but
is it the voice delivery, or the voices in general?
The voices in general. So it's both. The voices. No, I feel like I'm going to put my foot in my mouth here. I tell me if I should delete this.
I like it. I like where this is going.
No, the answer's already no.
Yes.
I don't care what you say.
Well, the sprites that you collect, like so the doodads that you need to collect throughout the games are these 6 or 7 elemental sprites,
Yes.
and most of them have this kind of maybe kind of gay, kind of stereotypical voice
Like
to them.
Like effeminate kind of voice.
Effeminate.
Effeminate, but more like, oh, girl, I can't, like that kind of stuff. Like, it feels like from the early 90s or something. I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, like it's really off, and it's really off-putting.
Mm-hmm.
Not that
Does it feel like stereotypically gay? Basically.
Well, maybe it's just me who I don't know how to describe it. I'm sorry. Maybe I'll just insert a clip and I'll delete this whole thing.
Yeah.
And people can judge for themselves.
Heyo! Looking for Lumina? That'd be me. Nice to meet ya! A pleasure. And thanks for releasing me from the belly of that Full Metal Mimi, am I right?
Coward!
Yeah, I don't know. But maybe more, the bigger problem is probably also the fact that everyone speaks so slowly. Like, it does not sound like it. That's the thing. Like, this is a game universe where you travel by being shot out of cannons, right? Mm-hmm. It happened in Secret of Mana. It still happens in Trials of Mana. This is a cartoon. So cartoony voices make sense. But everyone speaks so slowly. This is not how voice acting works in cartoons
and this
in
is
the 2020s.
Yeah, I feel like this was sort of a thing with a lot of voice acting in probably, the early 2000s, was where it sounded like everyone did their lines in a separate room and nobody knew, and everything was very much like, wow, I can't believe that happened. This is amazing. So, like, I'm thinking games like Wild Arms. Wild Arms was those kinds of games were like that.
Oh my god!
They're very much like that. Or like Lunar Silver Star Story was another one.
There is a very good reason for this though, and it's actually kind of an interesting aside, which is one, more anime was coming over at this point because we'd already had the Dragon Ball and Pokemon boomerang effects that brought over anime targeting slightly older and slightly younger audiences. But two, video games were also getting voiced. And so as a consequence, the number of voice actors who are available dramatically outstripped the supply because there wasn't as much voice work before this point. So now the supply is just like completely exhausted. So it's just like, fuck it. I can voice act. I'll voice act. But also voice direction. Like we didn't have the depth of people who have done voice direction, which really means to most good voice directors were or are themselves voice actors because they understand how to do this stuff. And so, yeah, the infrastructure just didn't exist. Like you don't hear that stuff as much now because there's a deep bench of people you can cast to be your protagonist, your bad guy, your whatever, like the whole list. And there are experienced people in like how to get the deliveries from them. So yeah, like you're right. That period happened in part because the population was just bled dry.
Yeah, but so
this game has no excuse.
Well, maybe not. So there was like a voice actors strike in 2016, 2017. This came out in 2020. I don't know if it lines up.
It had been recorded well after that strike.
Right. So, but it's funny because I'm seeing like Reddit threads from 5 years ago with memes about how, like voice actors go on strike, Square Enix hires Trunks to fill in. But also, like, I think that maybe the bigger problem is probably that the game was probably not really made with the North American market in mind, and so maybe like the cutscenes were timed with the Japanese in mind.
Oh no!
Right. So I think that maybe they had to make the dialogue much slower because they had to fill time. Because otherwise, like, people would just, the characters would say something very quickly, and then, like, the camera would linger forever. It would take forever for the camera angle to change, and the next person to say something. That's my theory. But there's also the fact that, like, they're just not very good voices in the first place. So, it's not great. So that kept me away from this game initially. But no, I guess I felt more like playing it. Oh, and another reason why I kept away was because the demo, I played it, and I was like, this kind of feels like playing an Ys game, actually. It kind of felt like playing Ys 8. 8 is the one I'm thinking of, yes? You just...
Probably. Yeah.
Because there is kind of that feeling of like, okay, you can jump around, you enter, these fights, and you fight in real time, and you've got your quick attack and your strong attack, and you've got your skills that you can deploy. Now playing it now, I realize like, no, it's not really one-to-one comparable. There is maybe some inspiration from Ys in the way that they made this remake, but not completely. It still very much remains a Secret of Mana game. So you've got, the way that this works is that you've got 6 characters that you can select, and that you can select from, and you choose 3. You're going to have your main character, and then like 2 buddies who, you could have selected them as your main character, except that you didn't. They're going to be your companions. So you're going to have your group of 3. And so the game starts, the story starts, you're just going to have your one character, and very quickly you're going to meet the second one, you're going to meet the third, and then from there you've got like your party of 3, and when you enter the combat, you can switch between all 3. You just press, LR or
that is
LZ,
very easy.
RZ. Yeah. And so like you switch in real time, but just like Secret of Mana or the Super Famicom Trials of Mana, you can bring up the ring menu, so that pauses the combat, and then like you can select the item that you want to use, or the spell that you want to cast, or the skill that you want to use. And so what I found is that I'm playing on the normal difficulty. I don't have to use the skills and the items quite as much as I did playing through the game with Karen, the Super Famicom version. So it definitely feels a little bit easier, and you can usually rely. So my main guy is like the knight guy. The second character I have is this awful character, Charlotte, who pronounces our R's like W's, and so basically it's Charlotte, and like at some point she talks about like flowers, and it's just incomprehensible. And
flowers.
This is you posted this, right? You posted the one screenshot where she's like, "I'm sorry."
Yeah, no, it's not even. It's not a screenshot. It's there. I can post it for you. I did post a video, and
I refuse.
Yeah, she's awful. And at some point, at the part of the game that I'm at right now, she gives, as you're traversing this new biome, she tells you how to solve the kind of the dark forest puzzle, like how you get through the what's it called in Ocarina of Time? The Lost Woods. Like basically, it's a Lost Woods situation. She tells you how to solve it, except that like the nighttime flowers, they become red, and so you go follow the red flowers. And at first I had screenshot that. I had taken a video because I was like, this is ridiculous. I need to post this on Blue Sky. And then I was really glad I did, because once I got to that part, I realized like, wait, I didn't catch anything that she said. And so I was able to refer to that, to the video that I had taken. Anyway, so I got a little bit sidetracked, but I guess my point is like she will heal you when you're not controlling her. Whereas like in the original version, you would have to go select her, you would have to go, have her cast the heal spell. But in this version, your partners can be relied on to be fairly independent. So that's probably why it's a lot easier, and it's a big help. And it's more fun to play, too. All this to say that I'm, despite all this, I'm really enjoying this game.
Good.
I'm really having a lot of fun. I played the Super Nintendo version long ago enough to feel, for this to feel kind of not new, but like slightly nostalgic. I remember this. But it's funny because I think it's mostly kind of like not how did I say that on Blue Sky? Like not secondhand nostalgia, but basically like twice removed, because I grew up playing Final Fantasy Adventure on the Game
nostalgia.
Boy. Well, it's more like this is a remake of a sequel of a Game Boy game that I played a lot. Final Fantasy Adventure. Yeah, and I loved it. And basically, like, it's the same stupid monsters that you fight. It's the same, universe, obviously. But there's a lot. There's something very weird about seeing this series that originated on Game Boy. That I think I remember this interview with the director, like the monsters in the games were like monsters that he doodled like since he was like 10 years old or something. They're very distinctive, like the weird like little imp demons and like hedgehogs that throw needles at you, and I don't know, like it's a certain style, and it's funny to see how it went from Game Boy sprites to Super Nintendo sprites to fully realized 3D models, and you recognize them, like it is absolutely recognizable. It's I don't know, I'm getting a kick out of this, just the fact that like, basically it's as if they had remade the first game in 3D completely and made it look really, really good. Anyway, like I'm really enjoying that aspect of it, but also, it's a long action RPG. It's very satisfying to explore the various areas. Maybe not as much as an East game, because those have gotten more like open worldy and stuff. This is not that. This is very much separate areas, separate biomes, but you get certain rewards for finding everything in an area. Like there's I think they added this to this version, like a cactus, little cactus, he's called. That's like, I don't know, like you have to find him in various places, and you've got like a stamp card, and every 5 times that you find little cactus, you get a reward, like, sometimes you'll get twice the XP after a battle, or you get a rebate on everything that you could buy at a shop, or, like this kind of stuff. And I'm missing about 8 stamps before I actually get like, see all the chests and the little cactus locations on your map. So that's going to be helpful. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, like there's a lot of there's a lot to like about this remake. I'm really I'm having a blast. So I would recommend it. I wasn't ready for it back in 2020, I guess, but now I'm playing it. Yeah, I guess I've just run out of things to say about it. But check it out if you are at all interested in kind of a really good remake of like classic Squaresoft, like we don't get those all that often. They'll either be shitty remakes, or the new Square Enix, which I have less affinity for, I guess.
Fair.
So that's my new business for this week.
Okay, cool. Greg, why don't you take us home?
Sure. So, I did get the new Mario & Luigi game Brothership in the end of last week, but I've not had terribly much time to put into it. Put a few hours in. It's really kind of just started to get going. Like, it kind of beat what seems to be the first kind of substantial boss, and then it kind of introduced some stuff like side quests and, kind of all these things that are like brothers attacks, like these things that you kind of expecting to be there pretty much from the start. So it kind of suggests, I have not made terribly much progress in those first few hours or whatever with the game, but I could just talk about it a little bit now, I suppose, and presumably more substantial things to say next week or so. But really, I guess the main thing is the reviews came in, and there was a bit of a mixed picture. Some people were warmer on them. They want it relative to the previous games than others. But for me, I've not played the remakes that were on 3DS, but I played all the kind of distinct Mario & Luigi games in the past, and for me, probably I would say Bowser's Inside Story was my favourite, quite narrowly over the original. They're both very good, but then even the other ones that I didn't necessarily like as much, I still enjoyed. So I thought, I'll give it a go. See, how well it goes. It wasn't a foregone conclusion, especially with this being, there are differences, of course, but, the third in a similar, vein of game in the span of a year, going back to the Super Mario RPG remake, roughly a year ago. And then, obviously, Paper Mario Thousand Year Door earlier this year. Mentioned, I wonder if that won't be particularly favourable for this game's commercial fortunes, frankly. Some of the audience, that would be amenable to this sort of thing may be quite satisfied, having already played one or the other or both, in the preceding months. But it is nice to see the kind of Mario & Luigi aesthetic kind of realised in, 3D, full 3D. Obviously, the 3DS games, you had a polygonal kind of top-down world, but then you had the sprite work kind of on top of it. So kind of like a PS1 era type of deal going on there. And, you know, there was some very nice sprite work, and they certainly got plenty of mileage out of it between, Dream Team, Paper Jam, and the remakes. But obviously that's been left behind now. You've got like full 3D, and I think, certainly like Mario and Luigi themselves, kind of, they are very expressive, they got a lot of, sort of character to them, and you could see, some of the benefits of, just obviously the Switch being a fair bit more powerful than 3DS, obviously, and just having actual polygonal characters, what you could do with kind of cutscenes in terms of, camera moves and, to show more of the world and to, zoom in on the characters, they can emote more and all that. So, there's definitely a certain amount of benefits, with that, but I do think, might have been I personally think they maybe could have pushed it a little bit further aesthetically in terms of giving it a bit more of its own identity. There's a certain amount of it there in terms of, the kind of really what defined like Mario and Luigi going all the way back to the GBA game, these very bold outlines, more of a comic book kind of look, which I think, kind of they had the apex of that in the original Bowser's Inside story, like very sort of stark, very bold look, which the 3DS games kind of got away from, with the sprite work was like a softer shading, and the 3D worlds and stuff, it was still a lot of good work going on and sort of appealing to a fair degree, but it wasn't, to me, it was like, especially when you've got like these different sub-series of like Mario RPGs and stuff, like I think it's important to have as much of its own identity as it could possibly have. And certainly, you look at like the HD Paper Mario games and they really take it like as far as they could take it, with like the landscape and everything, but much more so than say like the GameCube 1000-Year Door. They really kind of drive home the kind of paper theming and construction of the world, like every kind of opportunity in that case. And here, I just think it would have been nice if maybe more of the supporting characters and the environments and stuff just had something that gave a bit more distinct. Again, maybe just more bold colours, more sort of dramatic kind of stark kind of shading and stuff. I don't know, something. Just there's elements where it feels like it looks distinct from the 1,000,001 various like Mario things we've seen over the years, whether they're RPGs or not. But then there's other elements where it feels a little bit more like this is just like a kind of relatively kind of generic, like top-downy kind of Mario environment, and I feel like maybe they could have done a bit more to differentiate it in that kind of way. And then, beyond the superficial, with the aesthetics, just get, like I said, the full kind of development of the gameplay has only just really begun. So I won't go terribly much into it, but I guess one thing that I've seen mentioned, in reviews is just this, there's a little bit of a control change, in that, in the past, you always kind of like, if you were doing commands for Mario, it was always on the A button. And then if you're doing commands for Luigi, it was always on the B button. And what they've done is kind of made it more normal by saying like, no, you pick what the character is going to do using, A to confirm, B to back up. And then once you're doing something with that character, well then, Mario is A and Luigi's B, which is quite similar to something that was with the Super Mario RPG remake in terms of, if you go back to the Super Nintendo version, it was always like, okay, each button was like for a certain kind of action, right? Like, there was attack and defend and use an item, and you just kept pressing that button, rather than, using, again, A to confirm things and only for that. And so that when the remake for Super Mario RPG comes along, they kind of, I think the default scheme there was a more kind of orthodox one for today of like, no, you always use A to confirm and you use B to back up. But but they kept the option to change it to the way it was. And, you know, not that I've played Super Mario RPG as much, certainly, as I've played the various, you know, because there's more of them, Mario and Luigi games, but even me, having, you know, played it on Virtual Console and, you know, a bit on the Super Nintendo Mini or whatever, I was like, yeah, I'll put it back to the way it was. You know, I'm good with that. Certainly with Mario and Luigi, there's even more of like a muscle memory type of deal, even though, yes, the last one I bought was from, 2015 probably. I forget the Paper Jam. That was roughly around there somewhere, I think. But yeah, I did play a bit of I played Superstar Saga a bit on the Virtual Console, the expansion pack, I should say, NSO, when the GBA games went up and stuff. And so yeah, there was definitely a little bit of like, oh, the muscle memory's kicking in and it's making me do stuff wrong. And if there was the option to put it back the way it was, I would probably use that. But as far as I'm aware, that is not the case. But it really isn't a big deal in terms of, you know, you're going to get used to it because, like I said, it is just kind of the way you'd expect it to be, probably. Of course, you know, Mario and Luigi itself, like the first game, was, you know, not exactly like a sequel to Super Mario RPG, but it was much more like picking up that baton than Paper Mario was. You know, like, especially like getting Yoko Shimomura back to do the music, some of the people involved in the development and so forth. So it's kind of not a surprise in a way that they've both, you know, both the remake Super Mario RPG and this have kind of wandered into this kind of, well, there's the way we did things back then versus the way we think people, maybe especially younger players, will expect something to work today. You know, so yeah, that's just something to get a little bit used to for long time series players. And then the other part of it that's kind of interesting is that Luigi is like, the best way to put it is like sort of semi-autonomous now. Like, he does more stuff by himself, basically, than he used to. And so, again, if you've got accustomed to, like, the kind of rhythm of, like, oh, well, whenever you kind of jump, it's a top-down, obviously, you know, typical kind of RPG kind of overworld. But, you know, say for instance, because you control the characters independently, when you be doing things like jumping up onto a ledge or over a gap, you've got to have that kind of rhythm of, you know, Mario. Well, you can switch who's in the lead in the first one anyway, you know, and that kind of matters. But you got to press the two buttons in the right sequence with the right timing to make that happen. And again, kind of seems like maybe they think that perhaps for newcomers to the series, they might find that a bit irksome. You know, something as basic as traversal, you've got to be constantly kind of making these two characters jump properly. So basically, you know, you just jump with Mario over a gap or whatever, and Luigi will do it himself. Now, you know, you're not having to maintain that kind of independent control all the time. But then it goes further in terms of, like, you've got a dedicated button, which is, not surprisingly, the L button. He like gets a little ray of like light above him, and it's like, oh, he can go and like farm some coins by pulling up some stuff over there, or he'll go and hit some blocks with his mallet, and so like these things that were always there typically in kind of Mario and Luigi environments for like, yep, hit some blocks, get some items, get some coins or whatever. You could kind of make him do that stuff while you just keep exploring a bit. Or you can, if it's like a bunch of stuff, you know, he can do that again, just at the press of the L button. And then you can also manually do it at the same time to make it go quicker. Kind of, at the moment, it's kind of a minor thing. I don't know how much it's going to develop into a more significant thing as the game goes on. It's kind of interesting that it's like, okay, now it's less about, you know, Mario and Luigi are like equal and you're controlling them, you know, the same way for each character, and you need to control both of them all the time, versus like, well, Mario's the main character and Luigi's kind of this semi-autonomous buddy that can do some stuff, including like these feats of what is described as Luigi logic, which suggests that it's less than entirely logical, admittedly, where like there's some sort of puzzle or some sort of problem, and like he comes up with a stupid way to solve it, but it still actually works. So that's like some of how they're trying to get like more comedy out of the game. We'll see again how well that plays out. But yeah, definitely I've seen some pushback on some of these kind of changes in reviews and in comments and things about the game, because again, leaving the remakes out of it, there were 5 of these for people to, kind of get used to how they worked. And, I generally enjoyed them. So, I didn't have a problem with how it worked before. But really, you're going to have to see how it functions over the duration of the game before kind of making a call on whether you think it was worth it. But, I kind of like, at least very obviously with some of these things, I think it's aimed at the fact that, that God forbid, there might actually be newcomers, to this series, might be playing it for the first time, and that they might find it, more intuitive this way, rather than the way that the old fogies have actually been used to playing it. So again, especially if you're reviewing it, I think you've got a duty to kind of balance that, right? But what do you like, or what are you used to, versus, is it achieving a goal that's worth achieving? Because that is, a lot of people may well fall into that category. For me, it'll just be a case of what do I think justifies itself on the basis of the design as the game goes forward. So yeah, that's one of the things I'll be keeping an eye on. But in general, like I said, I feel like the presentation could be a bit more kind of distinct, a bit more flair to it maybe, but music is predictably very nice, and so it seems to be offering at least a kind of that kind of pleasant vibe that I usually get out of these kinds of RPGs that aren't too imposing in length and all that. So it might take me a little while to get through it, certainly at the current pace, but it's never so daunting versus something where the promise is like that it's going to be, as you already mentioned, with ease earlier on, in earlier games, could be more like a 70-hour kind of commitment or whatever.
Right.
Yep. So I think I'll report back on that next week.
Well, on that, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to... Let me look at the clock. We're going to do a little bit of some leftover listener mail from episode 900, so stay tuned. We are back with an listener mail, just the one. And emails, send them to us. We got a nice little run for 900. In fact, we won't even get through all the 900 stuff we have with this week as well, because we're only doing one. But emails go to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. You're about to hear a phone number that alleges to be for RFN. I don't know where that phone number goes. We have no connection to it. I don't recommend calling it, but if you do, that's between you, your credit card provider, and $9.95 per minute. So, John, would you read our email for this week?
Sure. MASB writes, "Greetings, RFN non-Ascentarians. Considering all the time you give to the planning and production of RFN...
Planning?
Isn't it time you made some dough? Short of the surefire moneymaker that a John Lindemann Tub Time Twitch channel would be. What could you do besides lame podcast ad reads that everyone else does? Then the number 900 gave me an idea. Why not set up a 900 number and watch the money roll in? It worked for the WCW wrestling hotline. It works for ladies with sexy voices. The RFN crew is primed for success. So what infotainment would you have on such a hotline? John giving pairings of game and bath bombs for tub time? He with the latest bicycle traffic reports in Montreal? Greg's updates on a Quixotic quest to have a non-shuttered video game store in England? An ongoing series from James explaining the lore from such games as Conception 2, Children of the Seven Stars, and the Xenoblade series? Can't wait to hear your ideas for the 900 number. I bet there'll be such moneymakers that Guy and Robert Borden will become fast friends. Yours in Dialing for Dollars, MASB. And the number that he pitches here is 1-900-1034-RFN.
God.
You gotta get that 103, and that's what it should be, really. You should just dial the number and then it just starts playing that episode.
Yeah.
You just dial 103 and it just knows. Oh, that's all you needed. Done. No matter what. No matter what.
It's on
where
the
you are in the world,
isn't it? With 911 or 999.
It's dial 103.
Anywhere in the world, you dial 103 and bang.
It's like, I was there and I needed to feel dumber. So, the first thing I did was I picked up the phone and I dialed 103.
And I feel stupid as shit
I feel
now.
dumber already.
I can't even tie my shoes anymore.
All you hear coming out of the receiver is like Sweet Pete.
Oh, I don't want that at all. That's now I need to know if there's an international code that is 103.
It definitely sounds like the premise for a movie that finally mixes like a Farrelly Brothers comedy with like late 90s, early aughts Japanese tech horror.
It's Lawnmower Man plus Fairley Brothers. Is that what you're saying?
Lawnmower Man, bloody. Have you seen Jeff Fahey in that? He probably gave Farrelly Brothers ideas for Dumb and Dumber. It's like, they're talking about laying it on thick. Bloody hell.
I don't think anybody is 103. That's very... Oh, well, duh, because you dial 1, so you couldn't be 1 something. Yeah, okay, that's fine. I'm stupid. There's some 8s, some 9s. There's some that just don't seem to follow any rules. That's pretty cool. Love that for them. 999 is reserved for future global service, whatever that means. Anyway, all right. So we have So I guess we have to explain what 900 numbers are because it's 2024, and some of our listeners.
I assume, like, to whatever extent this kind of stuff still exists, it's purely online now, right?
Yeah, it's gotta be. So, like, 900 number, the idea was it was a reserved dialing code where 800s were reserved for toll-free. So, again, this is a concept that doesn't make sense anymore because people don't pay per call. It used to be if you called someone outside of your geographic area code, maybe if you lived in an area that was close proximity to another one, there'd be some exceptions. You paid long distance because your call got transferred from your local telephone provider to your long distance provider. And so you would dial 1 and then the 3-digit area code in the US or Canada. And then you'd dial the area code for the area you wanted to call, then you would dial the phone number. Because 7 digits can only get you so far, obviously. What happened later, I guess is the best way of putting it, is they introduced the idea of the 800 number. These were companies who wanted anyone in the country to be able to call them but not have to pay long distance, so they paid their phone company to handle the long distance calls for all incoming calls. So they got a reserved, for lack of a better word, area code 800 that was for them. That told you when you called it, you weren't going to get hit with a long distance charge. This doesn't apply because once cell phones came out, they stopped doing the long distance stuff, and eventually they just stopped doing it altogether. Like, I don't think you can get a long distance charge now. I don't think it's possible. So that just became a non-thing. But I remember long distance charges. I remember using phone cards to call a friend of mine because they lived outside of state. And it's like, well, I don't want to get my parents charged with long distance, so I'll use a calling card, which is another thing that doesn't exist anymore. 900 was a different animal altogether. 900 is I am accepting to pay in order to receive this phone service by minute. Now, they did usually do the same deal as the 800 number with the telephone company of like, no, we'll cover the long distance part because they were then charging you either directly against your phone bill or you had to give them a credit card, usually on a per minute basis to engage with the call. To be relevant to this area, the Nintendo, what was that thing? The Nintendo Power Hotline or whatever was a 900
the counselors or whatever it was, right?
Where you could call to get hints on a game. Yeah, and they just had a book in front of them with like how to do stuff in all these games. Like imagine if you printed game facts for the NES library. That's what they had, and they would talk to you and get your parents' permission because you're gonna fucking get charged for it, boy, by the minute. But largely speaking, when we think of 900 numbers, we're talking about phone sex operators. Like, there's no polite way for me to say
no,
this.
No, it's true.
So
I'm pretty sure it's all a bit hazy, and you don't get necessarily as many culture references to it because a lot of them would be American, right? Because you're inundated with it. But I believe the equivalent 08 over here was the 0898 code, basically, which was again, presumably could have been used by companies for any kind of premium, like we're going to charge the fuck out of you for the privilege of ringing this number, but it was generally a kind of shorthand for sex phone chat stuff, basically. So I assume it was very much the same.
Chat lines is the
yes,
term
exactly.
they use for it. And it wasn't always phone sex operators or Nintendo. Sometimes it was more like
sometimes it was both.
Yeah, it's true. Yes, but like you would see ads.
Tell me more about how to solve Mylon Secret Castle.
Lonely and alone. Call this, and it would be like they would connect two people to talk to each other and whatever, like a dating line or whatever. I've heard 0898s. That probably is it.
I think so. There were a few different. There was probably more than whether it was like the same for a longer period of time. But at some point we added a 1 to all our numbers. It changed from, a 4-digit kind of area code to a 5-digit code somewhere in the 90s. So it certainly would have changed then.
They, looked it up. They are referred to as premium rate telephone numbers. And so they existed in a number of countries. It just happens to be US, Canada. It was 900. Apparently in Belgium, they've got a bunch of different ones, and the one you call, or the prefix they use is based on how much they charge per minute, which is extremely organized for what these are mostly for.
Yeah, it's
just very transparent. You got to give it that.
Yeah.
Finland has like 20 of them, which might say more about Finland than anything.
I mean, the U.S., I was just reading an article here from 2016, and there's still several large companies operating 900 numbers in the United States.
So
it's still an ongoing thing, yeah.
I don't remember what city I was in, but I remember finding a business card on the ground that had a 900 number on it. And a woman who I think is probably cold given her state of address. But the basic gist of it is it's a phone number where you get paid for how long you can keep them on the phone, which means your good operators are going to find a way to do that. So I'm counting how many different premium.
There you go. All right,
the Finns have.
I've got our idea for what we could do to earn money. This is a theme. So all of a sudden, isn't it? People pitching us on ways that we could monetize our
podcast
talents, so shall we say? It was the voice acting one a few weeks ago, whatever that was. But I was thinking, basically, if the idea is that really it's all about keeping people on the phone, then basically we take turns reading bits of movie scripts where someone is tasked with keeping the other person on the phone to establish a connection trace.
There you go. Nice.
It's the same purpose, so it can't go wrong.
I was thinking I would just read them from the Gex novelization because you don't want to bankrupt them. So you'd like, look, you should never have dialed this. Get off now. Get off the phone. No. So I'm thinking after I give them the 7th onomatopoeia in that sentence, they'll have an aneurysm and just pass out. And
then the receiver's still, it's
just there.
Yeah.
I can just charge them till their next of kin comes to clean the house up and hangs the receiver up. I could get days worth of money out of it. Am I going to go to jail? I didn't do anything illegal. Is it immoral? Highly. But that, as we've seen, that doesn't stop anybody from achieving any dream.
I mean, this is how if somebody called me, I would say, "Hey, this is John from RFN. It's great to hear from you. I'm going to begin reading from a prepared statement. This game is significant.
Oh, God damn it. God damn it. No!
You can't just appropriate these words for yourself. They're not yours.
But that was sure. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I mean, if somehow they had to contractually, say, they couldn't get out of it, basically, what I mean? They had to pre-commit to, they had to listen to one review. And I just narrated them that review. It would take quite a while of mine. They had lots of words in them. So, I mean, they generally didn't really form together into anything good. But, it would, if they couldn't hang up the phone, they would be on there for quite a while. And I wouldn't have to make fun out of anybody else's prose. It would be all mine.
This is the thing. You could have them say, well, what are you in the mood for? Do you want a game that's a 2 out of 10?
Yes,
do you want a 10 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 or a 5?
John
do you want a Zach Miller special? Do you want birds and bees or what do you want?
I like that John is just setting up the argument clinic Monty Python sketch at this point, which honestly might actually be the asset I most present. Someone calls and says, "Hello, I'd like to have an argument, please," and it's like, okay. What do you want to argue about? And then just immediately become contrarian. I think there's merit in that. Sometimes you just like to have a good argument. It's fine. It's fine.
It's so few opportunities to do it with strangers these days.
Well, strangers, but also then just be able to hang up afterwards and be like, I got that out of my system, and there's no written record of it. I can't go back and see it. It's not recorded anywhere. It's just gone. It vanished into the ether. Remember, kids, if you work for the government and could potentially be FOIA'd or whatever the equivalent request for information from a government officer, or in a business where your things could be subpoenaed, always say shit on the phone. Never put shit in email. Never. Never use email. Why? Because email leaves a record. For phone, all they fucking got is that you called them. They don't know nothing after that. Always use the phone. It's the first thing I teach interns. Always say it in person or use the phone. It's so much better. Email is bad. Email is the enemy. Also, Teams keeps a log too. So, hey, this is an opportunity. And that's not even like a moral thing. That's just so you don't end up on the email list because you accidentally said the word, I don't know what's a good word. What's a good example of one that's gotten me on there before? Regulations. And they're like, well, he must talk about regulations. He's on the email retention list now, buddy. And it's like, no. I was talking about airplanes sitting on the side in a chat.
Yeah. Or the word lawsuit. That'll get
you're on the list now.
Yeah, you're on the list now, buddy.
I was talking about a news story. Nope, you're on the list.
Mm-hmm.
So what I think you need for this, like let's say we offer a decision-making service. You're at home, and you're bored. You just finished up a game you've been playing for like 40 hours. Let's say you've been playing for 45 hours and you've completed all the quests in the game except for the fishing thing because that's a lot of work. Just as a hypothetical, and you don't have anything in front of you to play right now. And you're looking at the eShop and it's daunting. It's daunting. I get that. I've lived that life. I might even be talking about myself right now. Who can say? And you're like, I don't know what to buy. Like, I could just buy something, but what if I end up with Meowster Peace Museum? Like, how do I avoid American Girls Wasteland Shootout? And the answer is, Anime Girls Wasteland Shootout. It just has an American flag texture on the font. I know who to call. I call 1-900-1034-RFN and I say, I have a problem. And whichever one of us picks up, we go, let me help you. What is your problem? But as I say that, you have to give the full intro. Hello and welcome to Radio Free Nintendo Phone Tree Service. How may I direct your call? And then you'd say,
is it radio? I mean, I don't know. It's not free. And should it be Nintendo?
It's a Radio Free asterisk Nintendo. I am your operator today, James Jones.
Yeah, see, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking I should be the call screener, and so I say, okay, you don't know what to buy. And then the next question is, do you actually intend to play what you buy? And if they say yes, I'll pass them over to James. And if they say no, I'll pass them over to John.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
We got to do this shit in shifts, though. This thing needs to be up 24/7, 365. We ain't got time to screen calls.
Yeah,
motherfucker. Everybody's pulling 10-hour shifts on this line. So the until we get the AI to get our voices right.
Sure, yeah.
Oh, we almost have that.
So here's the thing: you can. There's nothing immoral about replacing yourself with an AI. That's your decision. You've made the call. So you call me and you say, "Hey, I need to know what," and I answer the phone. I introduce myself as, "I'm your host this evening, James Jones," and they probably hang up. They go like, "I'll call back later when Guillaume's on shift," and I'm like, "Wait, no, all right." But let's say they stick around. They say, "I don't know what to play," and I'm like, "What'd you just play?" And they talk through it. "Have you played this?" "Oh yeah, I've played that." "Have you played?" Now they could just tell me what they've played, and that would obviously expedite things. But we don't want to do that. We want to take our time. We want to get to know them better, and then you just go to the eShop, start looking around. You say, "Okay, what's your budget?" And they say, "Oh, well, I'm willing to spend about $15. And I go, I see. And so in the meantime, all I'm doing is I'm filling out the exact same thing they could have done themselves on the Nintendo eShop, but that's okay because they didn't. And now I'm getting paid to do it for them. So I've got it filtered out. And I'm like, well, there's a game that came out just last week called The Rise of the Golden Idol. It's $19.99. I know it's a little over your budget. How do you feel about adventure games? And then ultimately, as we work our way through it, we just kind of take our time. We give them lots of things we know they're not going to be interested in, but when they ask why we gave them that, we say, "Oh, we're triangulating your interests. We're going to give you lots of things that probably don't appeal to you, but understand why they don't appeal to you so that I can better refine this opportunity to get you the game that's right for you." And so, when I start explaining nurse call, I love nurses. They're gonna want to know why, and I'm gonna be like, well, because I want to understand you, or if I should put you in a you and a gamer girl. That came out wrong. I don't like how that came out. Which is in the same series, but eventually, we'll walk them through it. We'll have a little bit of repartee. We'll make some jokes. We'll make some jokes with them. We'll have a couple laughs. We want them to feel like they got a personal experience that was curated to them, because they're going to get a surcharge on their phone bill of like $48. I want to make sure they feel like they got their money's worth, or if they didn't, they can't sue us because they knew what they were in for. So eventually, we're going to find them that game they want. Or maybe they're like, "Hey, I need your opinion on a game I'm looking to buy." And they're just going to tell me the game they want right out of the gate. Have I played that game? Probably not. There's so many games on the eShop. But that's the thing. If you've hosted a podcast for 900 episodes, you don't have to have an informed opinion. Hell, if you've never hosted a podcast, if you're just on the internet, you don't have to have an informed opinion. You just need to have a strongly held belief motivated by no extra knowledge. And then make declaratory statements. So you're looking at the game that they want. They want to know about Vampire Hunter. It's obviously a Vampire Survivor knockoff. So what do I say about it? Well, it's not really. But I say that because the name is close enough that I can do it because it's a first-person shooter. And I just say that. I just make that my words. And I'm like, nah, you don't want that. You don't want that. Maybe it's exactly what they need, but it doesn't matter because, again, I've hung up the phone by the time they realize I was wrong. And that's the true 900 number experience. The RFN game selection service provided for you by us. The best part is we might be able to get publishers to give us money to recommend their games, even when it's not relevant, because we're still going to get paid.
Yeah, it's got to be as illogical as possible. It's got to be like you've got this huge flow chart of all the questions to ask and all the sort of various characteristics, and all it funnels down to is advising them to buy Lords of Thunder on the Virtual Console, which you can't because it stopped being operated several years ago.
Mm-hmm. Look, you know how hard it is to update that entire fucking flow chart? It takes days. It's still good. I'll get it when the Switch successor comes out.
If we're coaching for actual like performance in a game, shall we say, as opposed to how to spend one's money, which I mean, admittedly, just by the fact that they've chosen to dial the number suggests that they could use some help in that area. But nevertheless, with the terms of coach, I think John's Monster Hunter coaching service could actually be a goer on this one. John has knowledge that he can share.
Yeah,
as someone who has been coached by John on how to play Monster Hunter.
Indeed, yes.
That coaching involved, hey, whatever you do, don't pick the insect glaive. Mm-hmm. At which point I walked into the screen holding an insect glaive. So John, my recommendation for you as coach is just tell them what they should do, but word it as they shouldn't. So, because once you said don't use the insect glaive, that was the only weapon on the selection screen at that point. So do you think I can handle the insect? I can handle the insect glaive. People tell me all the time, you're the insect glaive master. And I'm like, you're right. You're right. You don't have to say it, but you are right. And I appreciate that.
Hey, I've heard of weirder fetishes.
It's not a fetish. It's a way of life. It's different. It's different.
Okay. Agreed. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I like, what if somebody calls us and says, hey, I want to be directed to bad content? Is that a different kind of obligation? Like, is that point, can you give someone something generically bad and be done? Or do you have to, like, give them bespoke awfulness?
What is the right Golan Globus movie for you? Well, let's see.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let me pull up the Wikipedia where they've got 9,000 of them.
Who do you really despise? People on bikes or foreigners? Well, I mean, that is a very important distinction.
What if both?
But yeah, Golan Globus has options for you, whichever it might be.
What if my answer is yes? Do you, by any chance, want to see every person who's ever been on a motorcycle get shot? All of them. All of them. You're in good shape because we've got you covered. Greg, I need a movie where someone is killed with a rocket-propelled grenade. Can you help me?
Oh, can I? Can I help you? Well, I mean, technically, it's very obviously a dummy that's killed with the rocket-propelled grenade, but it's still, narratively, and he had it.
Doesn't it freeze frame on it too?
It's bad. Their dummy shots are so bad. Missing Action 3, some corking dummy shots, but Death Wish 4 definitely so, because there's a dummy of Danny Trejo that gets blown up with an explosive bottle of wine. It's just terrible. It's like Bronson throws some water in his face, which is meant to explain why he's paralyzed and has become a dummy before the very bad explosion effect is overlaid. It's great work.
I adore the fact that a Golan Globus recommendation line does sound like it's something that we could only provide. I could say that only we could provide, but no, I think it's the other way around. I think it's the other way around. I think it's we could only. It's the only service we could.
We're the only ones that would provide it. I think is really the accurate way to say it.
Well, that is true.
Because there's a prerequisite level of research that would have to go in to make sure that we had every single question, every single eventuality covered.
As I understand it, at least the vast majority of the Golan Globus library was purchased at some point after they went belly up, incredibly, against all odds, I know. But it was purchased by MGM, which is now owned by Amazon. So I feel like, Amazon should be, paying us, really, to advertise their content, their very valuable content. I want the full Thursday Night Football excess, or the premium production values. I want to get Marshawn Lynch in here to explain to someone why Over the Top sucks.
We could pick your fantasy team for the week. Are we going to do a good job? No, but you don't know that. Maybe we'll nail it. Who could say? I like the idea of the sight unseen review as a service we can offer. Like, hey, can you review the new Dune show on HBO? Nobody's seen it yet. Can you review it?
I love it, yeah. Well, that is kind of, like the whole concept of the AAA game is kind of that, isn't it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, has this game come out yet? No. Does it look expensive? Yeah. Well, yeah. So, it's meant to be good. It was AAA game. It looks
it
big.
Open world? Is it bigger than the last game in the series?
It looks open. It looks like
bigger than the biggest open world yet.
It looks like it costs, so much money and so many man hours, and it was spread across. Its development was spread across every landmass on Earth, with people working 24 hours a day to accomplish AAA. Right. So that kind of thing. We just prejudge a game with our very own rating system. Forget. Moody's or whatever, forget Standard & Poor's. We've got our own way of looking at things. How something's shaping up.
I mean, we joked about this with Amazon's NFL coverage, and you mentioned earlier, but like the first year of it, we were like, why is this so fucking expensive? This is completely unnecessary. This is just because we were coming off the Thursday night game being like the one that the NFL Network produced, which just looked like garbage.
It was there. We're in cooperation with Fox, I believe, but still, basically the point is that was a package at that time. They weren't actually selling out. They weren't making money on it, right? It was basically like bait for somebody, which ends up being Amazon, to actually come in and offer good money, and they got somewhat better matchups as a result and stuff. Once it became an actual TV package rather than like a pilot program that went on for quite a number of years, essentially. But that's the point. We want the Rings of Power type of profligacy. As applied to like us.
A series no one likes, but with the budget of a film,
just the
every episode.
I still haven't seen it. I can't pass judgment. But but applied
I've
to the
seen enough.
I will look at a video game and tell you how good I think it is based on almost nothing. It takes a lot of money to do that.
Yeah, it does. It takes a lot of skill and energy and a lot of your money in our pocket to make that happen. I really feel like we offer a bunch of services that maybe they have different payment structures. Like if you just want a game recommendation, unpersonalized, it's just a recording. It's like, hi, you've reached the RFN game recording hotline. Today is November 15th, 2024, and our recommended game of the week is Mario and Luigi Brothership. Like, not even try. Like, just whatever.
Well, that's the thing. You would have to have one just inserted at random. Today's game of the week is Homie Rollers.
No, I would be fine recording the intro every week.
I do like the idea that each week has 7 games of the week as well.
Yeah, so I was curious if anybody picked that up. I gave the date and called it the game of the week. I'm not sure if it would be funnier if I re-recorded it every day of the week, but with the same game, or if I gave 7 games of the week and just refused to acknowledge the others. But it really would just be like, I just go to the games go, today's game of the week is Beach Boys, Tarot Hot Cards. Available for Nintendo Switch for $11.99. I'd be like, what, James, what the fuck are you talking about? But it's a recording, so they can say whatever they want. I'll never hear it. Especially when I tell them tomorrow's game of the week is a different game entirely. And that recording is gone because remember, it's the phone and there is no record left of what you have just done. But then if they want a more personalized service, I think it's not a recording. Because some of these 900 numbers were just recording. Like the WCW one, I'm sure was just a recording. I want to say I've heard like audio clips from it. And it was kind of like the WCW magazine, which I didn't have because I wasn't old enough. But John, did you ever experience a WCW magazine?
No, see, no. I never saw any of their stuff. And I don't think I ever dialed. Well, I mean, I was in Canada; they didn't have 1-900 numbers, but I think I maybe only dialed one of the video game numbers once, maybe.
So it was be like. Goldust did a run in WCW, didn't he?
Goldust? Well, no, not as Goldust, but yes, I mean, he was there for a while.
It'd be like you'd call and you would get a character going, this is my joke of the day. It's just a recording of like I don't know who would, like DDP, I don't know, giving like a fucking joke
like,
at the day.
It would be somebody like Heenan or something like that, right? It would be Bobby.
No,
Heenan.
it'd be like an active in-ring competitor, and they would be like, or be like, I'm gonna tell you a story, and it would just be like the ravishing Steve Austin telling you a story.
Yeah.
And it's just like, what the fuck is this? And that was all it was. Like, that was the line. At least that was the recording I heard, and it was like $3.75 a minute in 1999. It's not an insignificant amount of money to hear like jokes from, I don't know, some random mid-carder in WCW. And it's like, what? Why?
It's like, tell me
why
a joke.
Thing?
Tell me a joke, Disco Inferno, please.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck is going on right now? Now, ECW never had the guts to do a 900 number, but it would have been crass and terrible. I think that's part of what we offer. I think we offer unpersonal, because again, it's 24/7. So like, there's going to be times where none of us are staffing the phone. So that would be for recording only time. But as you get in there, you can get some more personalized stuff. And when more personalized services are available, maybe there'd be like the Nintendo one had hours of operation. So like we could have hours of operation. Hey, this phone is staffed Monday through Friday, X to Y. It'd be late because people are going to want to talk to us late at night. I understand. That's when the urge hits. And yeah, they can call, they can do whatever it is they need to do to feel better about themselves, and then they can go to bed. And we can collect the money that a good therapeutic service that we offer presents to them and deserves. But I like the idea of like we could have the John Lindemann joke of the day. John, you prepared to give us one joke every day? You don't actually have to give them a day off. We can record dozens of them in a batch and just have them queued up.
So it's literally the least I could do. I like it.
It's up there, yeah. I agree. It's up there. It's like, yeah, we'd have recorded content that alternates around every day, but if you have enough of it, you could start to kind of mesh them back in and people won't notice. As long as you vary up the order a little bit, you know. After like 200 jokes of the day, if I give you joke 47 again, are you going to notice? Nah.
See, the thing is, if we really want to get this to be a big enterprise, we need capital. We need an injection of money to invest in the.
Money. Okay.
Yeah, and these days, if you gotta achieve that, it's got to be AI, hasn't it? That's all anybody wants to invest in, right? So are you working an AI angle, or you got to do that? But I've thought of a way that we can do this and tell people that's what it is when it actually isn't, which is just that, well, when people phone up, we'll be operating essentially kind of like the fucking soundboard or whatever that people had for like doing the crank calls with bits of like Arnie talking in Kindergarten Cop. Like it's just going to be that essentially, and literally we could pick up the phone ourselves and just talk to them. But we've got to keep maintaining the pretense that it's AI, otherwise the investors will pull out. So we just have to keep using the really crude soundboard versions of ourselves. So some of which is culled from several years ago when, as I think you might have alluded to earlier on, James, we sound younger.
So let me put this in product terms and actually make the fact that we're faking the whole thing an asset to investors. We're doing a product test of a Wizard of Oz scale test to understand what the audience is looking for so that we can iterate our product to meet their desires and meet where the market exists before investing your hard-earned investment in AI technologies that may not meet their needs. So now they're going to give us money because they're like, oh, they're being responsible with money. Oh, shit. Also, John, how many years do you think I've done product now? Did I nail that shit or did I nail that shit?
That's pretty good, yeah. Yeah.
Just talking straight out of my ass. Get that money in, get it in. I'm going to take that currency and build my dream home, which definitely has a sarcophagus that is also a shower and a toilet. I've been inspired. It's what I need.
Canadian architecture.
Yeah. Everything else in the house, don't need it. I don't need the pastiche of different styles of Egyptian painting. That actually kind of bothered me because there was some stuff in there that was like, that's more Seleucid than it is, or not Seleucid, more Ptolemaic than it is like 15th dynasty, like that thing over there. But the sarcophagus, that's a shower toilet combo, A+. Need that. Like Homer, when he was an inventor, he put the toilet in his recliner. That doesn't work. That's too open. Put the sarcophagus toilet in your living room, A+.
The thing is, though, if you had a sarcophagus toilet, is there any risk that you might mix that up with the sort of Iron Maiden that takes you to the Batcave?
Only if I've been drinking. At which
so
point
it's like you think, oh god, I really need a shower, and then you just end up like all suited up in the bathsuit instead.
God damn it! Again, shit. But the advantage of having the sarcophagus shower toilet beyond the obvious is you get to make all kinds of jokes, all kinds of puns about Egyptian terminology, saying you're going to use the bathroom. Oh, I need to really settle Ma'at into the back into the environment here. Oh, I'm going to go unwrap the mummy. Like, you got them all. They're right there. That's it. That's what we can do. So you call us, hey, how can I put a verbal turn of phrase on this problem in front of me? And we give you the pithy response to keep in your back pocket for when you could pull out at a moment's notice.
Okay, I like this because this is actually something that ChatGPT is not very good at.
No.
Like, this is a service we can provide, and like filling a gap that any AI can't fill, really. Any LLM can't fill.
AI can't be funny unless it's by accident.
Yeah.
And we are often funny by accident, but sometimes we're on purpose. So call us with your hypothetical scenario, or maybe not so hypothetical scenario. If it's illegal, please don't tell us. And we'll give you the pithy response to tell your significant other, your parent or child, your boss, coworker, judge presiding over your case, whatever. And you may or may not profit from that, but we definitely will. And that's what's important here. I actually think this is an opportunity for us. This is a grand scheme that we could lay out for revitalizing the 1-900 space. We are definitively not going to have any kind of sexual content in this call tree. What you work out with John as a side hustle, I don't care, but not me, man. Keep that away.
Always been for sale. Always.
Well, we've talked about that. Like, I'm still for sale, just not sexually. Like, broadly speaking, available. It's not specific scenario.
Broadly speaking, available.
Oh, and
just
that's
not sexual. I'm sexually unavailable. All right, let me just put that out there.
Yeah, like I am for sale, just not that way. So, like, understand that the market dictates what the market dictates, and the market dictates that it's not currently supply and demand right now. There's no supply for whatever
economic forces, macroeconomic
whatever
uncertainty.
Frothing demand exists for this right now cannot be met by the market. I apologize.
War in Ukraine, right? The breadbasket of the planet. I get it. Yep, I get it.
Yeah, I guess I'm not able to provide sexual services on account of the grain not reaching Africa. You nailed it. Right on target. 100%. You can shake your fist at Vladimir Putin again for once again denying you what it is you so desperately need. But if you need advice on video game purchases or advice on how to use a word that will make everyone at work not know what it means and be confused, which is a thing that happens every so often, and then I just go like, the word was fucking chair. What's wrong with you? Hey, call the I'll take my extension being 4. I'll take 4. 4 sounds good. I like the idea that we have extensions that aren't actually like sequential or helpful. Like, you'd be like, what's your extension? 31. What? Who's 1 through 30? No one. That way, if you need to get in touch with a specific, like if you feel like somebody's got specific set of skills in the non-Liam Neeson sense,
still hardcore. It's got to be a fucking 1-900 number where you just ring it up and hear somebody give the Liam Neeson speech.
To be fair, Liam Neeson has a very nice voice.
It's a good voice. Somebody's got to be into that. Come on.
But like, I wouldn't want to hear it from anybody but Liam Neeson.
Oh yeah, true.
This all sounds like a BoJack Horseman joke, like Liam Neeson recording a voice machine.
Is Liam Neeson on Cameo? Is that what you're asking?
I guess, yeah. Liam Neeson, can you say this? Can you record my phone message for me?
I mean, how different is that from some of the fucking latter-day Charlie Bronson shit he's been doing for the past however many years it's been since the first Taken came out?
I just like the idea of Liam, can you just tell them to leave a message with your name and phone number, and I'll get back to you. And he's gonna leave some poetic shit that he's gonna start quoting James Joyce or some other Irish poet. It's just like, no, I don't need that. It's just ask them. You went through the whole message, Liam.
Just
you didn't even ask
say the line
number.
where you imply you're gonna kill everyone. Just say it.
Leave your name and number, and I will find you, and I will kill you. It's like, no, I didn't ask you to say that.
No. Just the first part. Just the first part. Just the first part. He's over there quoting Ulysses, and I'm like, no, I've only got 20 seconds before it beeps, Liam. Please. It's going to take 35 takes, and we're going to get it. We're going to get there. It's going to be fine. It's going to sound amazing. We can do that for you as well. Just press your phone up to the phone you're calling us with to record the message. Again, like, I think RFN 900 number is more of a utility service than any one specific thing. There's one specific thing that it's not, but broadly speaking, we offer many services to meet your needs where you exist at this moment in time, unless it's there. Cannot help you there. There are other lines to handle that. So, like, because RFN is nominally a video game podcast, but let's be honest. Of the video game podcasts I deal with, we are very likely to go astray from our content material, to leave our defined operational space. And so I feel like our premium phone service should be willing to equally embrace more topics afield from what you believe our expertise to be, if you have not somehow been clearly had it made clear to you that our area of expertise is not applicable. I don't mean that it's an area of expertise that's not of value. I'm more saying that it's not a thing that exists. The concept is not applicable, not the content of it. We can provide we're the utility knife of 900 services. We meet you where you are, and we get you where you need to be. Unless it's there, we're not going to get you there. It's not in our purview, not in our interest. Sorry. Unavailable. Unavailable for hire in that specific sense. All right, John, I'm calling, and I say to you, I need specifically hip-hop music recorded by someone in the year 2021 to 2024. Mm-hmm. And I need it to be completely like mumblecore. Where am I going? Can you provide that service?
Oh man, I don't know.
Just be Googling on the other
side. Lil Yachty or something.
Yeah.
I'm not even too sure. That's the thing. It's like that's a genre of music that I have completely ignored. So therefore, that's I would have to.
Is this how we're projecting? It seems like generally people complain that search engines are just getting worse and worse, and we think they're going to get bad that it's going to be preferable to dial a 900 number where one of us is going to go. Fucked if I know, mate. Good luck.
Actually, 1-900 iSearch would work. That is the right number of digits. It's like, Google's so bad you can't use it now, but I know how to use it. I know how to get the answer out of this fucking shithole machine. And I'll get it to you for $8.95 a minute. And look, there are times where Google is so bad, $8.95 a minute would have been a goddamn blessing. I'd have been like, yes, take my money. Fuck this hell site. But, yeah, I think now I'm just thinking about Lil Yachty. God damn it. Options. We provide options. Hey, RFN podcast, the phone. I need some music. And like, oh, what's the event? Guillaume, give me an event. What's an event we'd need music for?
Well, apparently, according to the Nintendo Music trailer, like shopping, like grocery shopping.
I hate grocery shopping, but I've often been with people who take too long. I want the Yoshi. Is it New Yoshi's Island, right?
New Island.
Yoshi's New Island. Yeah.
Take whatever you think it should be and then change it.
Yeah, I want that song playing so they get the fuck out of the grocery store quickly.
God, I thought that was going to be one of your best segues ever. I really thought you was going to say it needs a music for an occasion. What's an occasion? Guillaume was going to say the end of the episode, and then we was going to glide right into it.
I know.
I'm bitterly disappointed, I have to say.
I'm sorry.
Greg, what's our music to end the episode this week?
Now you got to call the number for that, mate. I ain't giving it for free now.
Yeah, God damn it.
Let me introduce you to a little concept called opportunity cost. No.
Son of a bitch.
As we know, people who say if you're good at something, never do it for free are evil clowns in films from 2008. We had a request in a couple of months ago from AG right about, I think it was a time where some more things were shown about the new Tetris collection from Digital Eclipse. And so now, it was just a few days ago that actually released. And we have the review on the website, Tetris Forever, I believe it is. And Willem was very fond of it. 9.5 out of 10, I believe, on that. If you want to read the full text that it goes into, as you'd expect with some of the relatively recent Digital Eclipse stuff, a lot of the value there. It's not just in, the several different versions of Tetris, although, again, it's one of these things where it's like being comprehensive with that is basically impossible because there is a shitload of different Tetris products over the decades, and, how many of them involve, like, some licensing nightmares and all that, but,
right.
It's not just about the games that are collected together, but it's about the process and the interviewing people and, going through that. So it sounds like they did, as you'd expect, I think, but they did a really good job with that. But AG, about a couple of months ago, offered a few different sort of Tetris music sort of suggestions for a few various different things, including like the Type B remix in Smash Brothers Brawl. I think it's still around in succeeding Smash Brothers games and so forth. But the one I've gone from is from Tetris Effect, that AG suggested, a couple from there, but in particular, the All Nations one. This is, the Tetris Effect soundtrack, I think, is widely kind of praised as one of the game's assets, and how it kind of, I've not played it myself, unfortunately. It seems like something I might enjoy, but I'm not got around to it. But definitely, how it kind of matches with the audio, the overall audio-visual experience is kind of praised at, but this particular song, All Nations, definitely got that kind of, it's a particular kind of strain. I don't know terribly much about like dance music and electronic music and stuff like that, but it's that particular kind where it's not just like, as you would expect from that genre in general, like up tempo, but it's got this kind of uplifting kind of feel to it, if that makes sense. So yeah, really, really good stuff, and very apt for that collection that's just come out.
Cool. All right, that'll be 9. That was at least 3 minutes. So that'll be 21:05. So I rounded up. Obviously got to round up. On that, it is time for you to fucking pay us.
Wow. That's right.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Later.
Bye bye.
You'll be hearing from our attorneys.